Is Thai easy or difficult? And the answer to that question is both. And the reason is because Thai isn't just one language, it's actually several languages. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the different aspects. And as a foreigner speaking Thai, some of these things will affect you more than others. The thing that most foreigners will be familiar with is the everyday spoken language. It's very informal and it has a very simple sentence structure. First one here, by nai, by, go, nai, where. Compare that to the English, where are you going? We have to use the continuous form of the verb going because it's happening now. With that we need verb to be, are, question word where, and pronoun you. Thais will often drop their pronouns, and as I say, the sentence structure is very, very simple. The Thai equivalent to how are you is Gin khao riang? Have you eaten rice yet? And you'll hear this question a lot and you'll get to know how to answer. Gin lao krap, rib roy lao krap, yang mai gin krap. As I say, you don't need to be in Thailand very long to pick up this stuff. It's really quite easy. Thais are very inquisitive, and if they see that you've bought something, they'll want to know what. Sư arai. So sư arai, by what? And that is the question. In English, we'd need to think if we're going to ask in past simple or present perfect. What did you buy? What have you bought? Trying to explain this grammar to Thai students is really difficult, but in Thai, once again, it's really easy. This is the easiest aspect of Thai. You pick it up very quickly, and within 6 months, you know enough to have complete conversations. By nai, where are you going? By rap look, I'm going to pick up my children. Oh, me look, gi kon. How many children do you have? Song kon, krap. Two children. Are you tau rai? How old are they? Kon to, gao kuap, kon leg, hok kuap. The oldest one's 9, the youngest one's 6. Oh, Rian Chan Nai, what level do they study? Bo Nung, Bo Si. This sort of stuff is really easy. And to people listening who don't know any Thai, it sounds as if you're fluent, but this is far from being fluent because there's so much more to learn. A lot of foreigners who reach this level proclaim that they are fluent. I never say I'm fluent, and I accept that I never will be fluent. Then you've got the regional dialects. If you learn Thai in Thailand, you will learn the central dialect, Pasar Glang. But if you live outside of Bangkok in the central area, you will probably hear other dialects. I hear a lot of the southern dialect where I live, quite near the Malaysian border. My wife speaks it to her family and also to a lot of her friends. And what it means to me is that I can just about work out what they're talking about, but I lose a lot of the detail. And I like to know what my wife's talking about. Also, with older people, you will find a lot of the older people will only speak the regional dialect and they don't speak the central dialect. So, for example, I have problems talking to my wife's parents. However, it's not really that much of a problem. Most people who do speak a regional dialect also speak the central dialect, so there's one dialect that you both understand. The languages of Buddhism in Thai are Pali and Sanskrit, but most Thais don't know those languages, so it's all written in Thai. This text is from a book of incantations at a temple, and it says Bodsuat Prajam 1. That's like everyday chanting, Pasar Thai, so it's in Thai. What you'll find is that even if you can read Thai, you'll come across a lot of strange vocabulary you don't know. And this again is something that's not really going to affect most foreigners in Thailand. Thailand has the most revered monarchy in the world, and there's a special set of royal vocabulary, Kam Racha Sap. Thai school children have to learn this to pass exams, but as a foreigner, it probably won't affect you. Even if you do meet a member of the royal family, they were all educated abroad and speak very good English. Now, if a Thai person meets a member of the royal family, it depends on the person whether they need to use this or not. I know someone who hosted one of the princesses at an embassy, and the princess told all the staff there they didn't need to use this royal vocabulary, but other members of the royal family may insist that Thais use it. So although regional dialects, religious and royal vocabulary won't affect most foreigners, you will find that you get into some unusual situations where the vocabulary isn't the same as is used in everyday life. And this can also be quite difficult. I mentioned on a recent video that my daughter started doing geometry at school. So there was a load of vocabulary that I didn't know. Mum chart, right angle, mum pan, obtuse angle, mum lam, acute angle. Also, I drive a very old car that has to be repaired often. And Thais have a complete set of their own vocabulary for car parts. So whenever I go and talk to the mechanics, they use terms that I'm not very familiar with. Chuang lang, suspension. Look, boom, bearing. Yang dang kruang, which is an engine mount. So, even though you might be familiar with everyday spoken language, you will find yourself sometimes in situations where there's a lot of vocabulary that you don't understand. This next section is a thing that makes Thai really difficult. And what you find is that there are virtually two completely separate sets of vocabulary for informal and formal language. And all the vocabulary that you learn in everyday spoken language is informal. But once you get into polite company, or especially if you start reading things, written Thai tends to be a lot more formal. And this can get really tough. So I mentioned with the everyday spoken language that people will ask you, "Gin kao yang?" Have you eaten yet? Well, sometimes they might ask you, "Tan kao yang," because gin is the verb to eat, which is very informal, but tan is the formal verb to eat. There are hundreds, probably thousands of words that have an informal and a formal version. And everyday spoken language, you'll learn all the informal stuff, but then if you don't know the formal version of the words, you're going to have problems. So if you ask someone what dog is in Thai, they'll probably tell you ma, but the formal word is sunak. The other day, my wife was helping my son with his homework, and there was a picture of a buffalo, and she asked him what it was, and I thought I knew. Kwai? No, she told him grabur. Because it was written in his homework, he had to use the formal word. No, I didn't know that. It's the same for elephant. I know the word chang, but the formal word is parana. Body. If all my body aches, I will say buatua, aching body. The formal word is rangai. And the same for head. Most people will use hua for head. If you see a sign telling people to mind their heads, it won't use hua, it will use siratsa, which is the formal word for head. This just goes on, and it's why I'm quite happy about reading signs and menus. But books and magazines and newspapers are a completely different thing, because the language in those things will all be very formal, and there'll be lots and lots of vocabulary that I don't know. Additionally, the sentence structure of formal written Thai tends to be very different to the simple sentence structure of spoken Thai. A while ago, my wife asked me to translate a document for my daughter. I did, but it took me most of the day, and I was constantly looking at a dictionary because there's so many words I didn't know. And what I found was that in one sentence there might be 2 or 3 verbs that were different words in Thai, but they all had the same meaning. And when I asked my wife why this was, she said, "Oh, it's to make it beautiful." And the Thai approach, they like this very flowery sentence structure because they think it's a good thing. Westerners tend to think that, why use 10 words when you can just use 5, make it as simple as possible. But Thai is the opposite. They like this very flowery prose and using lots of words. And I also found that I could translate every word individually, but still not know the meaning of the sentence. Additionally, there's a huge Chinese influence in Thailand, and you find that a lot of Chinese words are crept into language as well. I came across this temple a few years ago at Chinese New Year. And in the brackets, you can see Thai animals: pat, goat, wua, ox, mungon, dragon, ma, dog. And before them are the Chinese versions. So bi is year. We have bi mat me, which is year of the goat. Bi chalu, year of the ox. Bi mat rong, year of the dragon. And bi jaw, year of the dog. That was just a brief overview addressing the question of whether Thai is easy or difficult. And the good news for most people is that the only thing you're going to be worried about is the everyday spoken language. And that actually is quite easy, and you can get quite proficient in about 6 months. What I will say to people is that once you've reached that stage, please don't say you're fluent, because until you can understand all of these aspects of the Thai language, you won't be fluent. As I said, I will never describe myself as fluent, and it irritates me slightly when people do say they're fluent, and all that means is that they can deal with the everyday spoken language and they can't deal with anything else. And this doesn't just apply to foreigners. Let me give you another example. Some years ago, I was very friendly with a university professor. Very clever man, one of the cleverest Thais I've ever met, completely fluent in 4 languages, and he taught law. And he was telling me that his Thai master's degree students had big problems writing Thai. And this seemed really strange to me. You know, in a Western university where there were native English-speaking students doing master's degrees, they wouldn't have a problem writing English. So why do Thai master's degree students have a problem writing Thai? And it's because they're all very used to the everyday spoken language, but when it comes to writing the formal language, it's so different that they find it very difficult to do. Thank you to the people who have watched my recent videos, especially to those that have made a few suggestions for future topics. I will be working on those, so there should be another video fairly soon. Thank you for watching.